Happy 2 years of being hijabi to me. 2 years ago, on January 4th, 2019, I made the best decision of my entire life, which was becoming a hijabi. More than just a piece of fabric to me, the hijab has become part of my identity, shaping me in ways that I cannot imagine, and that I'm utterly grateful for. So today, I just wanted to share my hijab journey, why I started wearing it, what I've learned, and what's changed. Before diving into the decision of why I became a hijabi in the first place, I thought I'd share the whole journey from starting from my childhood up until now. I'm dividing my story into different markers of how it impacted my final decision. Oddly enough, it coincided with just my educational markers, so from elementary and middle school to high school and now in college. But basically, I'll be sharing my entire journey from pre-hijab, deciding to become a hijabi, and now that I am a hijabi. The first part of my journey naturally starts when I was just a young girl. Alhamdulillah, growing up, I was born into a Muslim family, so I quickly learned the etiquettes and just mannerism of what it entails to become a Muslim at such an early, young age. I never had to kind of figure it out on my own. My parents were, alhamdulillah, well-versed in what it meant to be a Muslim, and the stuff that they couldn't answer was answered at my school, because from preschool to 8th grade, I went to an Islamic school that literally shaped the foundation of who I am still today. Attending an Islamic school at such a young age, literally at the age of 4, going all the way until 8th grade, which when I was about 14, I learned essentially everything that I know today about being a Muslim, about Islam, about my deen, that I cannot imagine life without going to my Islamic school. I was exposed to ideas that so many young Muslim girls aren't exposed to at that age. And for that, alhamdulillah, I am so utterly grateful. But moving into how it impacted my hijabi decision. Elementary school, of course, there was a uniform. I wore a tunic, long khaki pants. But up until throughout elementary school, the hijab was not part of the uniform. It was in 5th grade where I started wearing the hijab as part of the uniform. So all of my peers and I, the girls, we'd wear hijab as part of the uniform all the way up until 8th grade. That was my first encounter with me wearing the hijab. I didn't think twice about it. I accepted wearing a hijab really easily since I knew it was part of my deen, and that everyone else around me in my bubble was wearing a hijab for school. Quickly thereafter, I understood what it meant to wear a hijab, whether it was to pray, to read Quran, whatever it may be at school. I never questioned it, but I never wore the hijab outside of school. Of course, I'd wear it to the masjid and just gathering sometimes, but I never made the intention of wearing and becoming a hijabi. Although middle school was fundamental in me grasping the concept of what it means to wear a hijab. Not just for religious reasons, but becoming aware of what the hijab means in terms of just a way of life. I saw my teachers wearing the hijabs. I saw older girls that graduated from my middle school go on to wearing the hijab in their respective high schools. But to me, at that moment in time, I didn't think twice about extending the hijab wearing outside of school. And my parents never forced me to wear the hijab. I know this is an unfortunate truth of so many young Muslim girls, that they were forced into wearing the hijab at such a young age. And now, when they're older, they have decided to take it off. My parents never forced me into wearing the hijab outside of school. And I think I would have had a different story had that been the case. But going back to school, I wore the hijab on a daily basis, and I didn't think twice about it. It was just to me, it was just part of my deen, but also just part of the uniform. It didn't extend beyond, wearing it at the grocery store, wearing it here and there, wearing it at parties, whatever it may be, like my mom did. She never was forced to wear the hijab either, which extended to her saying, "Hey, Aisha, this is not something you want to do just yet. Of course, I respect your decision." So I'm utterly grateful for such constant support from my mom especially. Flashing forward, throughout my experience in middle school, it was one of comfort and love. Never once did I really experience a matter of time where I was taunted for wearing the hijab, because my immediate bubble, everyone was visibly wearing a hijab. Not one girl in my class showed her hair, of course, because it was part of the uniform. And so I grew up in such a constrict bubble that I never really experienced that narrative being bullied in school for wearing the hijab. I was never that girl. I never knew what it felt like to grow up in an environment that it felt you were an outsider for wearing the hijab. So I can't speak on that. But what I did notice was my mom and her encounters with Islamophobes, as you would call them, and all of that stuff. She's wearing a hijab, and sometimes she would come out of the house wearing the full abaya and hijab, and we'd go to the grocery store, we'd go driving, whatever it may be. I noticed instances of her getting looks, unnecessary hand gestures, unnecessary comments, and she handled it like a champ. She did. She was a queen. But it infuriated me. I asked her, why? I started to begin asking that question of, why, Mom? Why did that guy say that? Why did that person give you that nasty look? And all she'd tell me is, you'll understand one day. You'll understand, but don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So she comforted me in saying that it's not because of the hijab, it's just sometimes because of people. And so I never really encountered a reaction myself because I never wore the hijab outside. But one time in 5th or 6th grade, me and my friends and just my classmates, we were all on a school field trip at a water festival, an annual water festival. And a student from another school randomly passed us by during a moment when we were all eating our lunches, stared at us, full on stared at us, made eye contact. I looked up and he said, "What is that? Why do you guys look like terrorists?" And I just froze immediately. I was in 5th grade. I was 10? I don't even know how old you are. No, not 10, 11, whatever it may be. I was just flabbergasted. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't even comprehend the question that was being asked until later that night, later that weekend, weeks, I started to think about it. I was like, why did he ask us why we were terrorists, or why did we look like terrorists? And then I noticed that the only underlying factor was the fact that I had a hijab on that time, because I had never ever heard that question outside of school, even when I'd wear modest clothing with an abaya. Not once did I get asked that question from a boy my age, so young, who could even comprehend the fact that, oh, people who dressed like this are those people I see on the media. I couldn't understand what was being asked of me at the time, and it didn't dawn upon me until years later in high school, when I had to sit down and grasp the fact that sometimes people are going to look at you that way, and that is okay. But at the time, I didn't know what to think about it. That was just one instance that kind of flew over my head that I never gave it another second or question of thought. So flashing forward to my 8th grade graduation, wearing the hijab, and of course, as soon as I started to think about, okay, what happens after this? What happens, as soon as I go out into high school, a public high school for that matter, not an Islamic one, I started to think about it. Am I going to wear the hijab? Is this going to be something that I'm going to keep up? And it wasn't a conversation that I was ready for just yet. I've had lovely encounters of being a hijabi, and my mom, right? She was such a great role model for me, but I don't think I was at a point of fully understanding, grasping what it meant to become a hijabi and all that entailed. Alhamdulillah, growing up in such an environment of an Islamic school, my spirituality and my religiosity was really high, but it wasn't at a level of understanding, comprehension of going beyond just doing things for the sake of it being a command or it being a suggestion from a scholar or a sheikh. I needed to come up with the own decision of becoming a hijabi, and at that point, I was not ready for it. So this is the second stage of my hijab journey, going into a public high school, no religious, attachment to it, and experiencing life outside of my Islamic loving bubble. So I'm a freshman in high school, and I don't wear the hijab at this point. I only really wear the hijab when it comes to religious matters, praying, whatever it may be, going to the masjid, and sometimes at oh my God, it sounds so silly to say, but alumni events of my Islamic school. I'd attend a lot of those fun events. But no, I never really wore the hijab, and I didn't visibly look Muslim. I know that's weird to say, but going in high school, I'm fair-skinned. I never even looked Pakistani for that matter. I'd always be called Arab, but that's not to. But I say that because no one really looked twice at me. I just blended into the environment, and honestly, I didn't care. I actually was happy. I was starting a new chapter, and I didn't want to be the token hijabi. I didn't want eyes to be looked at me for no apparent reason. Having known that my mother got those kind of stares, I wasn't ready for those kind of stares just yet. So really, high school, freshman year, sophomore year, nothing. I just went about my way, not talking about it visibly. Throughout my high school journey, I was still religiously involved. My spirituality kind of took a hit here and there because it was a public high school. It was because I wasn't just always actively gaining content about religion, about Islam, all that stuff that I was learning in elementary and middle school. I didn't have that. I was learning secular stuff, things that, of course, every child needs to know, math, science, and stuff, but nothing that benefited me being a Muslim. And so my spirituality kind of took a hit. I mean, I wasn't actively learning what I could be about Quran, about Sunnah, all that stuff that was really important to me. So I never naturally gave the thought about wearing the hijab. I just wasn't there yet. Though in sophomore year and junior year, I was still involved with going to halaqas, going to not Sunday school, but just being involved about making an effort to still keep up with being a Muslim. And that for me means going out of my way to learn more about my religion. So alhamdulillah, I still attend halaqas, especially when Ramadan would come throughout the years in my high school. That was a month that I really connected with my deen, with my iman. But never once again did that question of, oh, okay, are you ready for the next step? And to me, of course, the next step would be becoming a hijabi. In the back of my mind, all throughout high school, I always still ask myself, okay, is now the time? Is now the time? Is now the time? Because for me, it's always been that question. Never like, should I wear it? I've never been at that point. But for me, it's always been a matter of when should I wear it? So knowing myself, I always would ask, okay, Aisha, are you ready now? Is this the time? Are you going to do it? Is it, And naturally, I was like, okay, when I get married, I'll become a hijabi. When I'm older, I'd always tell myself when I am older. Progressing through high school, you grow up. Well, I grew up. And I was like, I am older now. I'm not just the naive girl that I was in middle school and elementary school. I'm grown. I know what it means to be a hijabi in this time that we live in a modern day world where the media and Hollywood don't like a hijabi. They don't do us well in their vision of being a token of hijabi. They don't portray us well at all. They uphold that narrative and stereotype of hijab being oppressive. And I was so infuriated every time I came about that concept when I was, going about my day, going about social media, going about the news, going about movies. I was sick of it. And I knew that it would be a challenge, but it was a challenge I was ready to face someday. And I would ask myself, when are you ready to do it? So that was just like all throughout high school, I was always asking myself, is it the time? I'd practice here and there, just going out, doing my day with a hijab on, never too bad of a reaction, but there was never like a sign, or there was never some internal moment where I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to do it. This is going to be my moment. Up until the winter break, going into my last semester of high school. So junior year, I was just the same old Aisha asking myself, but never doing anything about it. First semester of senior year, I was cramped in college apps and applying and all of that stuff. And I sat back and I re-asked myself, going back to the 5th grade encounter, why did that boy call me a terrorist? Or why did that boy ask my friends and I, whoa, you guys look like terrorists? And naturally, I had a discourse about it in my college essay. In one of my college essays. And I said, that was the moment in time where I re-asked myself that question. And I tried to dive into the answer. And all I could come up with is that I don't know. I don't know why he said that, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because it doesn't matter what he thinks. It matters what I think about myself. I know why I'm wearing the hijab. And he doesn't, of course, because of the media, whatever it may be, whatever has influenced him. I can't judge him for it, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge him for his reaction, for his encounter. I can only say what the hijab means to me, and that is in no way, shape, or form that I'm a terrorist. that was a spiritual awakening, if as cliche as it may sound. So I finished my college apps and I went into the winter break of my senior year. And that was where I cannot describe you. I had an epiphany. I asked myself, after attending a halaqah where the subject was hijab, the power, the beauty, why we should wear it, it inspired me. It reopened every door of all those askings that I had in high school. This was it. I stood in front of a mirror, so to say, metaphorically, and I literally was talking to myself, Aisha, why not become a hijabi? This is your moment. That you are older, you're wiser. Is it the time? And I can't tell you exactly why I thought I was ready or what exactly my brain was thinking, but I can tell you that I deeply talked to myself, because I talk to myself sometimes, and I said, if I can't do it now, I won't be able to do it later. And this is exactly why I said that. I was at a point where, of course, I was going to enter college in the coming year, in that fall. And I didn't want to deal with two new chapters. I didn't want to deal with a new chapter of embracing college and navigating what college may be like. And I didn't want to also just try to figure out what it means to be a hijabi. Those two experiences would have led to a different Aisha that you see today, because in navigating college and navigating the first instance of being a hijabi, I can't even fathom. I couldn't even imagine doing that. So ladies, if you are going through that now and you are in college, alhamdulillah, may your journey be of ease and no suffering, because that is something that I can't even wrap my head around. But I was like, if I can't do this now in this last semester of high school, where I've grown to know so many of my close peers and friends, if they can't accept me, that's saying something, because they know me. They know who I am. They're not just judging me by seeing a girl who's wearing a hijab. They've gotten to know me on a personal basis. And if they can't accept me as a hijabi, then I don't want them. I don't want them to be my friends. I don't want any of that. So no fear. Don't have any fear, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you when you make that decision, and always throughout with you. So I said to myself, I can do this. I can wear a hijab and just greet people in high school without being a different Aisha, because they know who I am and whatever. And I was like, this is going to be my greatest test. If I'm too embarrassed to wear a hijab in front of people that I have known for over 4 years now, then I am not meant to wear a hijab, because you shouldn't be afraid to wear it. And never that fact that I was afraid or fearful of getting those stares and whatever it may be that my mom did, but I was trusting myself that I would be brave enough to wear the hijab and embrace it and be confident in it in front of my closest peers. And I did. Coming back from school after that winter break, coming back wearing a hijab, deleting everything on social media that ever showed that I was not a hijabi, and just going through that just cleanse that everyone does, kind of changing up my wardrobe to make it hijabi friendly, all of that stuff. I was ready. I was ready to be a hijabi. And so were my friends, to my surprise. And not to my surprise, really. I mean, they're such constant supports, but I was overwhelmed with the support that I received and no real backlash or negativity that surrounded my decision. So this enters the last part of my story, because on January 4th, 2019, which is the last semester of my high school, I decided to become a hijabi. So I made that intention and decision to then become a hijabi at that moment. I've come back from winter break that Monday. Obviously, I'm consciously aware that I kind of look different, and I go about my day, but I receive no harsh, immediate judgment. There were questions, natural questions and curiosity from my peers, from my friends. Some of my teachers obviously noticed, but it was one of true curiosity and just no judgment, but out of love and empathy. They wanted to know, oh, why now? Because they've known that I was Muslim. I was active in my MSA. I was actively, supporting Muslim rights, whatever it may be. They knew I was Muslim. That was never something I ever hid from my classmates. But they, of course, knew that I never wore the hijab until now. And so it was like, why now was their reaction? And it was something that I answered in some form of this description that you saw today, that I was ready to encompass that new journey, that to encompass this new step that I saw in spirituality and love for Allah. And it's been great ever since. Flash forward throughout that semester, nothing too crazy to tell. It was love and comfort. Slowly the questions died down, and it was just, I was the same old Aisha, of course, but with a newfound love for my religion and a newfound spiritual state that came with becoming a hijabi. Right now, flash forward, I am a sophomore in college, and I can't really tell you that there's been really anything different than that high school part of the first moment of becoming a hijabi. Going into college, there was a huge presence and acceptance of wearing the hijab, because I think we're at a different time now. Of course, there are going to be some backlashes, like you see in a different part, like Belgium and in Europe, where the hijab is still controversial and stuff in that matter. And Islamophobia still exists today, but at least from my experience going into college, there was an MSU, a Muslim Student Union, which I immediately got involved with in my freshman year. And so there was such a bigger presence of hijabis. People, of course, I knew hijabis, but it was in college where I really encountered this is their decision beyond just the uniform. They actively, all of these girls, want to wear the hijab because it's their decision. So I immediately felt welcomed, and I was like, this is right. It just served as a reminder that this was a right moment that I made a couple months back, if you look at the timeline. College has been an amazing experience thus far. And so just this month, January 4th, 2021, I hit my 2 years of becoming a hijabi. And there's a lot that I've learned. I did a huge reflections post on my Instagram. If you'd like to take a look, I'll link it down below. But basically, here's the point in time where I'd like to share my reflections, what I've learned, and honestly, what's changed, which hasn't been much except my spirituality. Through wearing the hijab, I have found my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be stronger and of great magnitude on a spiritual level. From increased self-awareness about faith, about who I am as a person, I've learned so much about who I am as a hijabi, but also first and foremost as just a Muslim girl. I've become a better version of myself, and honestly, I am still seeking to grow as a person. Yet this journey hasn't been just rainbows and sunshines. There's never been a moment in time in these 2 years where I have faced a huge backlash and negative response to being a hijabi, but I'm more aware of what it entails. Strangers stare more. Some people walk out of their way to avoid me when crossing the street, driving. And others simply sometimes just tell me, I wonder what you look under there. I think you'd look better. I think you'd look better without the hijab. Some passive aggressive comments like that I've dealt with. But at the end of the day, what they don't understand is that I don't care what they think. I don't care what that boy in 5th grade said, because at the end of the day, the only thing that I care about is what I think. And ultimately, the greatest thing, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thinks of me. They don't understand that I don't wear the hijab out of anything else except to please Allah and for me to get better at my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I actively decided that this was something I wanted to take part of. A decision that I wasn't forced into, alhamdulillah, although like I mentioned, some Muslim girls go through that. A decision that is not oppressive, though Hollywood and the media would say otherwise. A decision I made and continue to make because it makes me, me. While I may face more hardship and intense and trials in this course of the journey of becoming a hijabi, I have full faith and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He will help me get through whatever it may be, inshallah. That's another thing I've learned from becoming a hijabi. Everyone's story is different. Everyone's story is not the same, and girls go through different things, but this is just mine. I wanted to share why I started wearing the hijab, which ultimately was rooted in a spiritual sense of getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I pray that everyone else's journey, if you're going through something, is easy, and that you understand that at the end of the day, this decision has to come from you wanting to actually be a hijabi. No one else can tell you to do it. Not once have I regretted my decision, and inshallah, I will never regret this decision. That was something that fueled that question of, when is it the time? Am I older now? When is it? Because the number one thing was that I didn't want to rush into becoming a hijabi, because I knew I had come out regretting wearing it. And that is something I never want to get to. That is a state I never want to be in, because the hijab is not oppressive. The hijab is nothing but you actively choosing to do it. When whatever that reason may be, for me, it is to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to take that next step. And like I said, best decision ever 2 years ago. And inshallah, I continue until all the day that I die, I am wearing a hijab, ameen. And honestly, so here's to more love, more joy, more growth as a person. This was long, and I'm so happy if you made it. If you did make it this far, comment down below. Just whatever it may be, just let me know that you were here this far, that you made it. That's it for this video. I just wanted to share my hijab journey. Inshallah, it has inspired some of you, left you with more of a opening to wearing the hijab in the future. I hope this video helped in whatever nature it may be. Well, I do want to help you. I'll reach out. I want to hear your story, whatever it may be. Comment down below. Let's connect, whatever it may be. If you need help, I'm here for you. But I do want to hear your guys' story too. At the end of the day, we're all here together, queens, and just here as a community. So I hope this video helped, inshallah. That's it, really. I don't have much else to say except that I hope you enjoyed. And I hope that me becoming deeper and sharing my story served as a reminder that was good for you to hear. That is all. I will see you guys next week. Don't forget to subscribe, like, follow me on Instagram. Do what you gotta do. I appreciate it. As always, stay gold. I'll see you later. Bye.